All right, welcome everybody to our webinar about Indiana Wesleyan University. My name is Samir here. I'm an educational consultant with GoElite, and today we're partnering with Indiana Wesleyan University to talk about some of their programs. They have Masters in Tech and in AI. They're an affordable program, Nathan here will be joining us from the university itself to talk, kind of share with us a little bit about these programs. Throughout the presentation, of course, make sure to pay attention to the presentation. There's a lot of great information that's going to be in there. But if you have any questions that come up, please put them into the Q&A. We'll be having a Q&A session at the end of the webinar that you guys will be answering everybody's question. So of course, we welcome your questions, but also as you're kind of just do make sure you're paying attention to the presentation. There is a good chance that your question might be answered by Nathan directly. So yeah, a little bit about us. So Go Elite, we are an agency. We're based here in Pasadena, California, in the LA area. We are certified by AIRC, the American International Recruitment Council. But yeah, we do have a rewards program that we're rolling out. So if you're kind of interested in CPT or masters, hybrid masters programs, feel free to join our rewards program. You can get points for engaging and chatting. You can also learn about this day one CPT from other students. So feel free to join this. You can earn points and redeem them on Starbucks or an Amazon gift card. We're also holding an H-1B blessing event if anybody's interested in. So if you're going up for the H-1B lottery, kind of want a little bit of extra luck, go ahead and register for our H-1B blessing. We do have limited spots. We'll be handwriting prayer notes and delivering them to a temple in Hyderabad, Chilka Balaji Temple, and our visit will be in 2025. So do get in touch with us if you want to know more about that. That'll also be free of charge. So it's not a service we're paying for. We're just doing this as um, a little service to help everybody in the upcoming lottery. But don't just take our word for it. Go ahead and check out our reviews on Google, GoElite Inc. You can check, we have over 500 reviews from all of our clients. And yeah, feel free to get in touch with us on our socials. We have YouTube, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram. All right, so without any further ado, now I will go ahead and pass the presentation over to Nathan to talk about IW.
Thank you so much, and happy to be here and have an opportunity to share some more about Indiana Wesleyan, as we have recently partnered with GoElite, and we're excited about this new partnership and opening up some of our programs to clients of theirs and coming and joining us here with our residencies in Indiana. So just give me one moment to get my screen share pulled up here. All right, so as I said, my name is Nathan Hawkins. I'm the PDSO and also the Executive Director of the International Student Programs at Indiana Wesleyan University with our hybrid F1 programming, providing a lot of operational support for our students and keeping the program running smoothly, in addition to providing that leadership over our DSO functions as well. Just a little bit more about us. Indiana Wesleyan was founded in 1920. It's a comprehensive Christian university. We are associated with the Wesleyan Church, and we have over 13,500 students. We have a primary campus in Marion, Indiana, which is about 3 hours from Chicago, about an hour or so from Indianapolis. They're in the northeastern part of the state of Indiana. About 2,200 students live and reside in a more traditional campus experience there in Marion. And then we also have educational centers that have been opened since the 1980s. We have locations in Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, as far east as Cleveland, Ohio, as far south as Louisville, Kentucky, and then as far north and west as Maryville, Indiana, near Chicago, where our hybrid international programs take place. As far as accreditations, Indiana Wesleyan is well accredited across its academic spectrum of programmings. Just provided a wide array of the different accreditations that we hold across all of our different academic areas that we serve and educate in. Specifically for this program, We are accredited by the Higher Learning Commission. That is our regional accrediting body that covers many states, including the state of Indiana. And many of our programs that we offer in the hybrid F1 format are accredited through our business accreditation, ACBSP. Not every program in our F1 space falls under that accreditation, but that accreditation does specifically speak to the business preparation and quality of our academic faculty team. So as far as what I'll be covering today from our hybrid F1 programming standpoint is our master's programs. Specifically, we have a wide selection that we're offering and continuing to add to that set of offering programs within the F1 space. Most of our programs are 30 credit hours. We do have a couple of our F1 programs that do extend out to 42 credit hours at the graduate level. And then if it is one of those 30 credit hour programs, it is completed in 20 months is the completion time. We do have some opportunities that if students want to engage and complete a little bit faster, one of those 30 credit hour programs can be as short as 16 months to complete out that degree. The way the program works is you take one course at a time. Each course is 8 weeks in length, and then each term you will complete one residency experience at our location there in Maryville, Indiana. Each of those residencies is 2 days. Our first residency experience is a 3-day experience as a part of an orientation and onboarding welcome event for our students. We do host a meal there on Thursday evening as well as a part of welcoming new students to Indiana Wesleyan. And then all those subsequent residencies will run from Friday morning through Saturday afternoon and conclude in just those 2 days of intensive learning throughout that Friday and Saturday. As I mentioned, we are located in Maryville, Indiana, which is in the Chicago metropolitan region. I do have a map that I can pull up here later in the presentation that kind of shows where that is within the Chicagoland region. Our total cost for one of those 30 credit hour master's programs is a little less than $20,000. That includes books, tuition, and all the fees. Falls just under that $20,000 mark. Any of your residency expenses for travel and hotels and lodging would be beyond that, but we do feel that the initial cost to Indiana Wesleyan over those 20 months is very competitive. And again, that is a total number, not an annual tuition cost, but as we say in the United States, out the door is $20,000. We do 3 intakes per academic term. So we do have several different entry points, what we call an A, a B, and a C start every term. And then with 3 terms per year, that does allow us 9 different intakes per calendar year into those master's programs. So we can be very accommodating as far as the timing from ending on OPT or coming off of an H visa or needing to do a change of status. We do have a variety of entry points to ensure that we can accommodate students throughout the calendar year. This is just a bit of a graphical representation of what that academic term looks like. We are currently in the middle of what we call winter term, so winter 2025, and that term is 16 weeks in length. And so you would take one 8-week course in the one part of that 16-week term, and then a second course in the other 8-week part of that term. One of those 2 courses would include that residency experience, and it would be structured within that particular course. We would give you an assigned weekend to come to campus. That's when your professor, your instructor for your assigned class will be there, and you'll be in that classroom with fellow students from your course section. SEVP regulations do allow one online course towards your full course of study. And so that second class each term would be conducted completely through an asynchronous format, and you'd be completing assignments throughout each given week to meet those academic deadlines. Both the online and the residency courses do also offer synchronous sessions at least once per week. So there is an opportunity to gather with students and interact with your professor even when you're not at that residency location. For our master's students, all students engage in what we call a UNV course that does run the entire length of that 16-week term. There's no credit offered to that, and that cost of that UNV course is structured into that $20,000 number that I mentioned, but that is the exercise that our students complete to make that curricular tie from what you're studying to employment or potential employment. So if you're seeking CPT or OPT upon graduation, that is where we ensure that we are covering all of those SEVP regulations for CPT and OPT. So what you do throughout, there's a few assignments assigned to that class. They will be marked, they will be graded, but you're essentially taking what you're covering in your courses each term and then making that curricular tie to employment. So here's a map of the Chicagoland region and a picture of our building there in Maryville. We have about 16 classrooms, and so we can host about 400 to 450 students on a given residency weekend. We also have some common spaces and some lounge spaces for our students to be able to relax during some breaks. And as we head into the evening, like I said, with the meals, we also do provide accounting team support on Fridays. And then we ensure that we have at least one DSO in the building for general questions on Friday and Saturday while you're on site. And then the little pin there on the map, as you can see, it's south of Lake Michigan. It's about an hour from both major Chicago airports and conveniently located down along Interstate 65. The hotel and lodging, there's a lot of different options right there off of that exit on Interstate 65. I've seen per night rates anywhere from about $60 a night to about $300 a night at that exit. So wherever your budget is or whatever you deem to be the appropriate level of quality for your evening, there's something there at that location that'll fit your expectations for lodging while you're on site for your residency. As far as programming options with our partner GoElite, currently we have 3 different majors that we're offering there within the Master of Science. All of them are STEM eligible for that extension if you are seeking OPT upon completion of your degree. We have a major in data analytics. We have a new major that started this last fall as a Master of Science in Artificial Intelligence, and it does have a specialization in some data analytics courses as well. We're really excited about that degree. Indiana Wesleyan has embraced AI across the board and is working to integrate AI in a positive way throughout our curriculum. We believe that that is going to be a powerful tool and requirement for employment as our graduates head off into the workforce into the future. So we are doing our best to embrace it in the positive uses throughout our curriculum. And then we also have a major in computer information systems that does get a few of those new artificial intelligence courses embedded in there as well. May 5th, working on getting this up on the website, we will have a new major in IT project management that will be going online as well. That will be a 30 credit hour degree with a management course, a couple information technology courses, and then all of the curriculum required to pursue a project management professional PMP credential. It would meet the education requirements for that international credential. And then if our graduates pursued the work experience requirements in the exam, they could pursue that PMP credential upon graduation. Application process for us is that we do have an application portal. So if you visit our website or connect with one of our GoElite partners, they will give you a link directly to that application. And as you create your account, it will have your application form for you to submit, and then it will queue up a checklist for you based on your application of the required documents for you to submit. If you've already attended a U.S. school, we do prefer official transcripts be sent to Indiana Wesleyan. There are instructions that will be loaded for you there in your application account. If you have previous education from your home country, then you can provide us unofficial copies of those and load those directly into your account. Transcripts, consolidated marks memo, whatever you have available that shows that individual course completion, and then a copy of a provisional certificate, diploma, whatever term has been provided from your home country as far as actually documenting that degree completion. We will ask for your passport as well to load that into the account, and then financial documentation, which is a SEVP requirement for I-20s. We will ask for that financial documentation of funding to cover the cost of attendance for the first 12 months. Bank documents, sponsor information, any of those different requirements to show that you have the funding necessary to complete the degree and meet that SEVP requirement. If you already have a US visa or change of status documentation, we will ask you to load that into your application account as well so that we have that information. And English proficiency. If you have previously studied in English, either here in the US or in your home country, there is a form that you can complete to document that for our records. If you have not previously studied in English, then we do ask that you upload your English language scores there into your application. We do on occasion request third-party evaluations. We do encourage you to submit all the documents that you have, and then our admissions team will review. And if it is something that they're able to process and make an admissions decision on what you have provided, then we won't require a third party. If you do need a third party, our enrollment counselor team will reach back out to you and let you know the admissions team decision, and then provide you some options on where you could secure that third party credential. Again, if you've studied in the US before, then there's really never going to be a reason for a third party. Just ensure that you upload that US degree into our application account, and we'll be able to move forward without that extra requirement. The funding number, if you were curious, for a master's program currently is $26,400 for the first 12 months. A reminder that our tuition for the entire program is still less than $20,000. But for SEVP requirements, we need to show and demonstrate living expenses in addition to that. We try to keep that number at a minimum as far as what we can put there for that. But we also understand, depending on where you live in the US and your personal experiences, that may not be a reasonable expectation, but we are trying to keep the funding number at a number that is something that you can easily provide for admission and to secure that I-20. I know many of our GoElite students have a lot of questions about CPT, so I do want to touch on those as well. From a CPT standpoint, for Indiana Wesleyan, our rules and regulations and policies, you cannot begin prior to your program start date, but we can have your CPT authorized on your program start date. So if you take all the steps necessary as far as your I-20 and having it transferred to us and providing all the documents that we require, and you qualify, then we can certainly have that ready to go on day one. Our academic term schedule, the way we have those UNV classes laid out, does allow for 365 days per year of work authorization. So we are set up that, regardless of your work schedule, we can provide that work authorization throughout the calendar year. Day one may not be available in some visa scenarios. I am working with our academic team on some additional options to meet some of those SEVP regulations. But for most of our students, we're able to provide that day one CPT authorization. If you have a concern or a question based on your individual experience, then we can get you connected with our DSO that handles CPT approval, and Jennifer will be happy to have a conversation and ensure that you qualify. We do renew our CPT annually, so we will put that out there for 12 months, depending on the offer letter that you provide. But we do check your UNV course completion every term. So if you are not participating and not completing those UNV assignments as required, then we will pull your CPT authorization, as again, that UNV class is specifically there to ensure that you are meeting the SEVP regulations for CPT approval. If for whatever reason you lose your position or it's paused, ensure that you inform your DSO team immediately so that we can make that update to your I-20. And a reminder, if any of you are considering OPT upon graduation from a program at Indiana Wesleyan, 12 consecutive months of full-time CPT means you forfeit OPT approval. And the big reminder I like to impress upon our students is USCIS and SEVP define full-time at 20 hours or more per week, where if you talk to most employers in the US, they'll say 30 hours, 35 hours, those sorts of things would be considered, part-time from a common workplace vernacular here in the US, but from an SEVP regulation, it needs to be less than 20 hours to be considered part-time. As far as documentation requirements for CPT, I apologize. I updated that slide today and it removed all of the text I put on there. So as far as our CPT documentation requirements, we will ask for an offer letter from your employer. It does need to state the employment start date. So make sure that that start date is in the future and does allow a few days for us to do the document processing on our end to ensure that everything is ready to go. Do not work before you have that CPT authorized on your I-20. Unauthorized work in the US is the quickest way to lose your F visa status by doing unauthorized work. There's an additional verification form that we request our students to fill out for documentation purposes, and then a cooperative agreement form that we'll have your employer fill out. I do know that some employers that our students work with refuse to fill out that cooperative form, and we do have an alternative documentation method in place if your employer refuses. But, we do really want your employer to fill out that form unless they just adamantly, absolutely refuse. We don't see a lot of employers refuse, but we know there are some that are out there. But when we connect with SEVP and our field agents with the agency, often they ask us about those cooperative forms. So it's important that we have as many of those on file as possible. So if you want to join us, the best way is to connect with one of our GoElite agents. They can provide you a link to our application and some additional information. And then once you get that application submitted, my team will step in with our enrollment counselors who are also DSOs. And we'll begin to kind of coach you through that application process and get you set to enroll.
All right.
All right, that
Thank you
is,
so
let
much,
me
Nathan.
unshare here.
Oh yeah, I got it. Cool.
There we go.
Um, all right, so this is we've been collecting some of the questions that you guys have been submitting. So feel free to, we have about 23 minutes. We'll be going until 4:45 Pacific time. So if you have any questions, continue to put them in the QA sheet. We'll try to get to what we can. We can't promise it. If you have like a very personal question or your question doesn't get answered, that's what we're here for at GoElite. We're here to help. Feel free to scan the QR code on the left for WeChat consultation in Chinese, or scan the QR code on the right for a WhatsApp consultation in English with me. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the questions. All right, Nathan. So for day one CPT residencies every semester, if there's an emergency on that weekend, is there an opportunity to do a makeup session?
We do have some alternatives in place, but I will be honest, that bar is very high. We do strictly enforce that residency expectation. When you are on site, there is an attendance application that we have you download so that we can track and monitor your presence 9 times over those 2 days. The reason for us being strict is with hybrid universities, we continue to see if there is an RFE, the request and the documentation requirement continues to increase. And so at Indiana Wesleyan, we are doing our very best to demonstrate that our students are doing the right thing, they're meeting the requirements, they're meeting the regulations, and we want to have excellent data to support you if there were ever a question from a U.S. agency. So, if there is an absolute medical reason or, right now it's snowing in Florida for some strange reason, and I've had some students reach out with some flight difficulties. We will work with you, and then there is a makeup opportunity to ensure compliance. But again, we will set that bar very high as far as using that makeup option.
Yep. Okay. So I mean, that's good news actually in both ways for the student because Nathan, like you said, actually these regulations not only, the on-site is not only for your learning, it's also for your F1 visa status maintenance. So it's actually good that the bar is so high because that will actually be helping everybody maintain their status legally. On the other hand, it's also good to know if there's like really something like your flight is canceled and super delayed or there will be a way for you to make that up. But again, this has to be like something pretty serious. Something here at GoElite that we also like to recommend, just since you mentioned it, Nathan. So in terms of like the documentation that IWU will be providing for attendance records, we will also really recommend students like keep your own like records of your flights and your hotel stays and maybe take some pictures of your lectures and whatnot so that you could supplement whatever IWU is also providing supporting you, that building an even stronger case should you get an RFE. All right, great. So next question. If a student, so a student, I noticed you were talking a bit about different entry points, different ways to enroll in the program if you're not already on F1. If a student is doing a change of status from L1, would they be able to get CPT from the first day of class?
Um, Probably we have worked with some Ls to have CPT right away, but again, would want to know this individual's unique situation before answering
Okay,
100% confidently.
so a little bit like case by case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And yeah, as always, like with any university, CPT is not guaranteed for anybody. CPT is authorized on the basis of the connection between your job and the coursework, which has to be approved by the university. All right. So someone else asked, can you talk a little bit more about the UNV course for CPT OPT? E.g., you mentioned that yeah, basically just a little bit more about that UNV course.
Yeah, I mean, we want to make sure that we're meeting the regulation with that UNV class, but we're also trying to, we don't want it to be a burden, or something that's weighing you down. There are some assignments in there, 2 or 3 each term, and then a few additional smaller ones where, again, it's just simply having you do some charting, doing some crosswalking to document and answer questions on, this is the objectives that you're learning within this particular course, and then how do those objectives translate into real world work situations. Indiana Wesleyan has been doing adult, friendly, people that are employed friendly programming since 1986. And so our curriculum is really designed around taking immediate action from what you're learning in the classroom and applying it into the workplace. So, I mean, our curriculum has been structured around that for a long time. And then we're just making sure that you articulate it in a way that would meet the SABP regulations.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that. Are there any restrictions that students should be aware of if they're traveling outside the country while doing CPT at IWU?
I mean, restrictions, no. Obviously, one of our criteria is that you do attend your residencies. We know we don't want students just planning travel. That's going to take them away from that expectation. Occasionally, you hear stories about students in a hybrid program having trouble on reentering the country. On the few times we have seen those with our students, often there's another reason that student is having a negative interaction with customs. Often it's unauthorized work. And then they're using the hybrid modality as an additional layer of scrutiny on the student, where the unauthorized work is the primary issue for that secondary inspection. But one thing, we do hold monthly sessions, and one session we hold on a regular basis is on travel, and where we just coach students on, as Samir already said, be knowledgeable about your program, take pictures of you being at the residency, be able to articulate why you chose this program. Even if the CPT, the work authorization, might be the primary reason, you should still be able to speak well and articulate why, what you're studying on a daily basis.
Yep. I mean, this is a student visa, and your primary reason to be in the US should be to study. So if you're not able to articulate
Correct.
that, then you'll
100%.
be in hot water. Um, all right. So do you, I think we just already talked about this. So RFE support for students, like if students do get RFEs that are related to IWU, remember RFE can actually be for any point in your like visa history that can be examined, but IWU would be able to support. Who would students reach out to in this case?
We have a ticket system for all of our inquiries with our DSO team, and then it gets routed to the correct, DSO team member to support. And if they're one of my key lieutenants amongst our DSO team handles RFE support and documentation. And again, if you receive one of those, sometimes the most common RFE we see with OPT applications is usually about 8 bullet items, of which 5 are the responsibility of the student and 3 are documentation that we can provide. And, like I said, we have a DSO assigned to work with students on those, and he will coach you through on how to secure all that documentation.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that. What kind of career support is available for students at IWU?
Our faculty are excellent at providing career support, as many of them are industry professionals in the workplace. We do have one partnership right now that does provide job board postings for companies that are specifically looking to hire people under CPT or OPT work authorization. And we are seeking to add additional resources to that existing one partner.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. Now I think we already answered part of this question in the presentation. So there are 9 intakes per year. When's the application then for the February intake?
No set deadline, but ensure that you leave yourself some time after admission to transfer receivis if necessary, complete the deposit and other registration steps, and a day or two to get registered. We register everybody automatically. There is a set course list. There's no action you need to take on that, but you want to make sure you have at least a day to kind of check things out before you get off and running.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, and we always here at GoElite, we always recommend students apply to any program that you're going to a little bit early, especially if you are, let's say, going up for H-1B this year, but you're considering maybe enrolling in a program afterwards, after April. I think it's still a good idea to apply now while things are a little bit calmer. The admissions team is a little might be a little bit busy, a less busy, and here at GoElite will definitely be a little less busy. Get everything up and set up and ready should you need it after the H-1B because things might be a little bit more rushed then. All right, so do students have to have a job offer from the first day, or what does the CPT requirement look like for students?
No, I mean, our programs don't require CPT. We just have the regulations in place that we can't authorize it from day one. But, our programs are also structured and set up for students that are seeking OPT or, neither, if they're just here purely
Okay,
for the academic program.
active enrollment program. Okay, got it. So are there programs that would be available for somebody who's currently working at a law as a law clerk at a law firm?
Directly, no. I would say that the artificial intelligence with the data analytics specialization could definitely be applicable in a setting like that. Um, because with artificial intelligence right now, it's about prompt engineering and how do you use the variety of tools that are changing and evolving daily around us and make it useful across, the workplace spectrum in the US and the world.
All right, that's good. Thank you for that. And can students work during term breaks?
Yes, again, those UNV courses actually go from January 1st to the last day of the term. And so, like I said, those UNV classes, the dates on them span 365 days to ensure that there's work authorization for 365 days.
All right, thank you for that. So this student has a question about the AI data. Oh yeah, so they're asking about if they maybe the student sounds like they want to study AI data analytics, but is also concerned about CPT and how to relate that. And maybe but doing CPT for a program that doesn't relate to that. Could you explain like what options a student might have in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, again, the regulation is that there needs to be a relevant connection, to your work position. So again, I would think something with a data analytics and an AI major, again, is going to be applicable in a lot of different industries. I mean, I don't want to, speak very confidently to this individual and their specific job, but again, there's a lot of different ways you can apply that particular major.
Yes. So I would recommend for students, no matter what you're doing, just take a look at the curriculum for the majors. When you're getting in context to us, we'll be providing you information with all of this curriculum. You will really be the best person that understands your job positions because you're the one doing it. So take a look at your job description, think about your responsibilities, even if they fall outside of the like official description. And then also take a look at the curriculum and see what matches because that's really the basis on which this is going to be evaluated. There's no really, unless it's like a one-to-one match between your title and your course, it's really going to be about the connection between the course and the curriculum. So do take a look into that yourself. All right, can students register and work for their own company through CPT?
Um, Short answer is yes, but again, would want to know the specifics before
Mhm.
we could say approval on that. But
Yep. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. And again, like you were just saying, a lot of these questions are going to be based on the nature of what you're actually doing for students. Are there any changes to F1 visa requirements with the new administration as of now?
to be determined.
To be determined. So as
Yeah,
of
I was
now,
gonna
yeah, we haven't
say,
seen anything,
yeah, it's still
but
early. I've not seen anything from this first wave of executive orders that gives me caution or concern. We do follow NAFSA is an excellent resource for students and, people like myself as DSOs within institutions. So I do monitor, the reports and things that they're putting out there. My best advice on the new administration is to listen to your DSO and not the news. Because I mean, the news cycle is going to hype things up. It's going to, run with things before it's really official and speculate. Where, like I said, we will be watching for official guidance from SEVP and guidance from organizations like NASA. So, like I said, that's where I would recommend, follow the DSO and not the news.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes the students will be like, "Oh, like we heard this or with that." Like, yeah, just follow your DSO because there's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
mean, the
stuff going on
green
in there.
card comment from several months ago
Yeah.
is a great example. I mean,
Yes.
just because it gets put out there doesn't make it true.
Exactly. Yeah. What document requirement? What kind of documentation would you an employers need to provide? Let's say through the cooperative agreement.
But they need to provide the offer letter and then that cooperative form. We do keep it pretty basic, but essentially they need to provide a few of your key functions and duties that you'll be performing on a
Mhm.
regular basis. And again, we want to make sure that those duties do have some curricular tie back to your academic program.
All right, sounds good. And so I think we answered the first part of this, but can an offer letter or can CPT be started like in the middle of a semester, or like how would that how would that work if it's not coming in at the beginning?
Yeah, again, the reason we have that UNV class running alongside all students at all times is at any point you want to add CPT, you provide us an offer letter, connect with our DSO, Jennifer, that handles those approvals, get the documentations in place, and then she will issue out that new I-20 with the CPT approval.
All right, thank you. So there's a lot of flexibility. I know that's not always the case at
Correct.
every school. Is there any additional fee charge when applying for CPT?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, cool. Got it. So this student, they're on grace period for their STEM OPT. They have 60 days grace period. Can they still apply for the spring term?
Yes, ended on January 9th. So, I mean, our February 3rd or our March 3rd start date would both work for that. And again, your new I-20 does provide, at least 30 days, from the start date on your I-20. So if you have a 60-day grace period and then a 30-day, program start period, there's 90 days that you can count for based on that I-20.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so for students, just for the technical, the nitty-gritty, your CVIS information is still going to be active for those 60 days. I would recommend just again beyond just getting your application in to get things rolling, do get in touch with your DSO at your previous institution to make sure they are up to date, because if they sometimes like they might not be paying attention, or I've had like very exceptional cases where a DSO might accidentally like close your CVIS and CVIS record prematurely. So make sure that you're in touch with your DSO and they know what's going on so that you're actually able to transfer. Because the CVIS transfer is not only the responsibility of the receiving institution, but it's actually going to be a large part in the institution that's releasing it. So this next question about RSV successful rate, I know this is kind of like a little bit difficult for like a university to handle because the RFE is actually not something that the university receives. It's going to be something that a student you will be receiving as you are going further in, let's say, going for another visa or you're going for OPT. So IWU might not have exactly, or actually any institution may not really have like statistics on that because it's actually data that falls outside their purview. But I don't know if you have anything else beyond that, Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it just depends on following directions and submitting what is asked for.
Hmm. Yep. But yeah, so this is again, there's no real way to quantify this because this is not information that anybody actually collects because it's actually it's based, your RFE is individual. So again, students sometimes ask this when they're comparing universities or whatnot, and this is not something really that any institution has the data on. All right, so if a student is currently working, let's say on OPT, how could they ensure a transition from OPT to CPT without interruption?
So, short answer is it can be done. You just got to make sure that look at the process in advance, ensure that you are working ahead. This is not something that you can apply at Indiana Wesleyan or another school at the last second. Make sure you're communicating with your DSO at your current school well in advance. But the short answer on the way that that process can work is you'll want to apply and get admitted at Indiana Wesleyan. Work with our DSO that handles CPT to ensure that all that documentation is in place and ready to go. And then you'll want to contact your DSO at your home school and go ahead and request transfer out. But what you're going to do is you're going to say, don't transfer my record until this day. and they can go ahead and go into CVIS. They can go ahead and do the transfer out process and click all the buttons to make sure that it's set and ready to go. But they will set that transfer out date into the future. And then we can grab that on that last day, do our process, get the CPT added, and then issue the new I-20 from Indiana Wesleyan. Because we can see and verify that it's going to be ours on that day and feel confident that it's going to be in good standing and ensure that we have you registered in class. But it just comes down to communication on both sides with your former school and with your new school throughout that process and working in advance. Don't try to do this 3 days before your OPT end date and our
Mhm.
start date and expect it to work out well. Ensure that you work
Yes.
in advance.
Yes, so that's again. So always telling students this is actually like I think a perfect example of why it's important to apply in advance. Again, even if you're not like exactly sure about like your paths, you're exploring different options, that's cool and you should keep your options. But in order to keep this option open, make sure that you do it in advance so it could be as smooth as possible. Especially some students I know or some employers might not be so friendly with like taking unpaid leave on short notice or whatever. Make sure you're planning ahead. All right. So F1. Yeah, so this question I can answer actually. So if this, I assume the student is talking, they're saying their F1 visa is expired. I assume that they're talking about their F1 visa stamping versus their F1 visa status. So these are two different things. Your status is governed by your I-20, like the student says, you're able to stay and work in the US. Your F1 visa is just governing your entry and exiting from the country, from the US. So if you all you're doing is transferring your CVIS, actually this has nothing to do with your passport. You would just set up the transfer between your the two DSOs, and that would not really affect your legal status. Now, if you want to exit or enter the country, then you will have to go for a visa restamping outside the country. But if you're staying in the country, you won't shouldn't have an issue with that. All right, next question. Does IWU accept student loans as for proof of funds?
A short answer is we do, but again, we'll need to look at that on a case by case basis. I have seen some students, like Empower is a good example where Empower only works with certain institutions and with certain majors. We would just need to verify what the qualification of that loan was.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Are there scholarships available for the master's programs?
We do have some scholarships listed on the website. We are looking to retool some of those and do some updates, but there are some current opportunities listed on the website.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And then last question. Okay. And again, if you have like long questions like this, feel free to come in to our consultation on the left for WeChat or right for English consultation. On English, we'll actually go ahead and give you a phone call. So a student is currently on L1B and planning to convert to F1. Do you have enough time to get approval from the university? Okay, so really quick, I'll say a quick couple words and then pass it on to you, Nathan. So for L1B, for any change of status, the most important thing, at least governing your status, is to just get your like paperwork like filed, your I-539 form, the change of status form. You want to get that filed with USCIS before your visa expiration date. That beyond that, again, you'll be on pending status and you'll have legal status to stay in the US. Actually, you shouldn't leave during that time. So that's going to be the most important thing. In terms of how quickly that gets processed, that will also determine when you can enroll in the program. Normal processing time we've been seeing from anywhere from 3 to maybe even like 8 months until that gets approved. That's out of the hands of the university. That's purely USCIS. You can't, there is a premium processing service that the USCIS does offer. They'll get you the result within 30 days, sometimes even faster, but they're going to charge you about 2K extra for that. Now, all of this, so a lot of this question, the student's question, I think is going to be like with USCIS. One question that might like be that is in the purview of IWU, it would be like, okay, to start this I-539 process, and again, I know I just did a lot of information in a short time. Please scan our QR code. But in order to start the change of status, you're going to need an acceptance and an I-20 from IWU. So how quickly could students like expect that?
If everything you said 100% accurate, and with the timing that I'm seeing here, the premium processing is probably a requirement. And
Mhm.
yes, they are going to charge you, but yes, you're probably going to need to do the premium processing.
Yes.
But as far as Indiana Wesleyan's process goes, if you are filling out the application, providing us all the documentation that we're asking up front, we can usually issue an admissions decision within about a day. And then if
Mhm.
you can give the DSO team another day or two to get that requested, and I would encourage you to go ahead and fill out a ticket to connect with your enrollment counselor and let them know what the urgency is. Then we can try to prioritize that. we can have that I-20 to you pretty quickly to submit that application.
Okay, cool. So that's really fast processing. So again, yeah, like Nathan, like you're saying, I don't think that like regular processing will really be realistic if you're trying to start from May. For example, if you're okay with like waiting and starting later and kind of being on pending status, then you can pick a later start date and you'll be good. But if you do want to kind of maintain your working authorization, you're gonna need to pick an earlier start date and you're gonna need to do premium processing. But again, in terms of getting that first step, the documents ready for the I-539, IWU will be able to get that through pretty quickly. One thing again, just as we're wrapping up, as you're submitting your application, make sure that before you submit a ticket to make sure that IWU is paying like extra attention and processing things quickly, make sure you actually have all of your documentation in. I know that's sometimes an issue with students. They'll be like, hey, like I submitted some documents, like can we please like process this quickly? Make sure you actually have all of those documents in. Cool. All right. So if you have further questions, we are now just 1 minute over our time. So I'm going to have to cut this here. And looks like we have no more questions anyway. Feel free to scan our QR code on the left for Chinese consultation, on the right for English consultation. And again, as we mentioned earlier, we do have the rewards program. That QR code here is on the right. You can get some points, get some cash, and also network with other CPT students. So please go ahead and scan this, and we'll be happy to be in touch with you. Again, thank you so much, Nathan, for your presentation and bearing with all of these questions. We look forward to maybe like in a future webinar.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Good evening, everybody.